You can't see me, but I can hear you. Throw your name out to the stars. If you speak nicely, I can hear you. I heard you from a mile far. You can't hear me, but I can see you. Wrote your name into the sun. If I'm lost, if I'm found, will you stay with me? When I'm down, when I'm out, will you stay with me? When I'm bad, when I'm sad, will you stay with me? When I'm lost, when I'm found, will you stay with me? Look into this glass eye, I can see the future. You choose what you do with what you're gonna see. Together forever is a false fairy tale. We're barely at a break, we're hardly at a spell. And if you think I'm different, it's because I am. What's in front of you is a hologram. I'm a careless bear, not a care in the world. I'm a roller star, on my own. When I'm down, when I'm out, will you stay with me? When I'm sad, when I'm mad, will you stay with me? Will you stay with me? When I'm lost, when I'm found, will you stay with me? Will you stay with me?
The world has many places of light where faces laugh in the sun's glow. Take me on board your shimmering ship, built of eternal ties and ice-cool dreams. Fly to that hidden city nestling in yesterday, across the smoky mountain and along the flowing river. The land lies as a maiden left in repose. Tread softly, walk on silent notes. She will ask you nothing and tell you all. And you, without thinking, lose your soul. Your mind will be carried off in a silver light. Painful fickle beings, you devour the beauty that evades your control. The sea will cover you wave upon roaring wave, destroying the bounties of love that you wanted to share. And when you wake up tomorrow should be gone, and today's innocence, the next will appear on the horizon.
Okay. Okay, guys, we are about to finish the second part of the Zoom conference, the talk showcase, International Music Showcase Israel 2020. So in about 5 minutes, we're gonna drop everyone back to the lobby, and we're gonna start two super interesting conversation with great speakers from all over the world and Israel, of course. So get ready, call your friends. You can see now on the screen. Um, the first talk gonna be the necessity of conference in comforting a global crisis. The second one will be the music is the weapon. How art and music come and become a part of revolution. Both of these subjects very, very relevant for this period. So stay tuned. 5 minutes. Here we go. we're going to have the first panel. We're going to talk about the necessity of conferences. It will be held by Marcus Fitzgerald from GigMit and INES. He will produce himself and all the speakers. Marcus, hi, are you here? Yeah, I can see you. So I'm giving you the mic, virtually giving you the mic. And let's start. We are also live on Facebook. So if we've been to the little bubble of us until now, so now everybody can see us, so behave. Enjoy.
Thanks so much. Yeah, welcome everybody. Thanks so much for having us. I think it's a very important topic that we will speak about in the next 45 minutes. I have some wonderful guests here along with me who are experts in the conference world and can give you a good overview of what's going on all around the world and what are the takeaways and learnings we can get from that. First of all, to give you a quick introduction about myself, I am Marcus Fitzgerald. I'm the CEO and founder of GigMit. GigMit is Europe's largest online booking platform. So it is made for artists and their representatives to get shows as easy as possible. And on the other hand, for festivals and venues and clubs and promoters to find talent as easy as possible and go through all the booking hassle very fast, getting supported through digital technology. But I have and you might have seen it in the on the slide, I have a second hat on because I'm also the founder of a network called INES or INES, stands for Innovation Network of European Showcases. And it is a network of now 20 festivals in Europe that are connected with each other. And we work on sharing and exchanging artists as well as music professionals all over Europe, but also having conferences, for example, more international or making the conference more international in a sense of having English-speaking content on these conferences and inviting international guests to speak and so on and so forth. So there's a lot of work we do on that end, and I'm obviously involved in many festivals that that happen here all around Europe. But now on the panel we have a more broader view, a more international view on the whole topic. So I would like to introduce our panel here. We have Dhari from Womex. We have Jonathan here from Global Toronto. We have Manuel here from PMI Arts. And everybody has kind of made their own experience in terms of their own conferences or attending conferences. So I would like to hand over the mic right now and start with a quick introduction round. Maybe Dhari, you can start, and then Jonathan and Manuel by introducing yourself and tell us a bit more about your role at the festival, what you've done this year at with your conference, and maybe a few highlights you'd like to mention.
Cool. Thanks, Marcus. Yeah, first of all, hi to everyone, and thanks to the team for having this incredible few days. It's been a fresh air in a Berlin lockdown for me personally. So yeah, I work for Womex, the Worldwide Music Expo, which is based in Berlin. It's a traveling expo. So this year we're supposed to be in Budapest, Hungary. Last year we were in Tampere, and next year we are planning to go to Porto in Portugal. So normally on site we see around 2,700 delegates representing 85 countries. We have around 60 showcases and 250 trade fair stands. So this year, obviously with Corona, I'm not sure if we're doing the drinking game still, but we shifted everything online. So we had, in the end of October, our festival over 5 days online. And there were 1,130 participants representing 90 countries. And we had network meetings, conference sessions, films, so music-based documentaries. We had 38 showcases representing around 40 countries. Plus we had our award ceremony, and we had some live shows, which were jury-selected Hungarian artists performing live in Mupa venue in Budapest, which was then live-streamed onto our platform. My role is the head of showcases, and we open up the call for proposals in February and planning an in-person event for end of October 2021.
Thanks, Dhari. Yeah, let's hope that will happen in person. Jonathan, over to you. You're in charge for Global Toronto. Please introduce yourself.
Yeah, thanks, Boker Tov, everybody here in Toronto. It's early in the morning. Yeah, my name's Jonathan Campbell, and I'm here in Toronto, which is, we like to contextualize where we are. The traditional lands of the Haudenosaunee, Anishinaabe, Wendat, and the Mississaugas of the New Credit, which are some of the peoples that have been stewards of the land that I now live in for many, many thousands of years. We think of Canada as the New World, but actually there's been people here for a really long time, and we like to think about that and being in the tradition of it. And in that tradition, Toronto itself was known as a place where people gather. And so the organization I work for is called Small World Music, and we are all about getting people to gather, breaking down barriers, and using music as a tool to get people together. And one of the things we do, in addition to presenting concerts year-round and a festival every year, is Global Toronto, which is the conference that really just got started. 2018, we had a very tiny version with 9 people that were invited to see some Toronto bands. This year, we were scheduled for the beginning of May with 19 showcasing artists. We were going to invite 25 international delegates and have another 150 or so from across Canada and the region. We very quickly, I wouldn't say it was very quickly, as a result of doing community consultations, which is a big part of how we design Global Toronto, we discovered that people were still hungry to gather. And again, being in May, we're quite early in the calendar, so we were both blessed and cursed by that situation. So in April and May, we basically got together with the community and asked around, like, what do you think? Should we go online? How do we even go online? What should we talk about? And we, the other shot game we play here is whenever someone says pivot. So I'm trying to not to say pivot. But when we went online, we also became what people have described as quite activist. The guiding principles that we talked through in all of our activities in the conference are sustainability, equity, and accessibility. We realize that the pandemic has brought to light systemic issues that have been plaguing the music sector for a long time and making an inequitable situation. And a lot of people, and either the sector's been broken a long time or it's been working exactly as it was designed for a long time. And so we thought this was the great platform to address these issues and try and get people together. So we wound up with just over 800 participants over 5 days, and 19 showcasing artists. Like I said, there were 75 countries represented. So we grew through no intentions. I mean, we intended to tell the world about it, but we did not expect what wound up happening, which was really amazing. And I'll throw a link in there because the content that we had over the course of the 5 days in July, we ended up being, is up online for people to view. And I think it's really important viewing. We like to think it is. And so were the artists that our jury selected. Thanks. Sorry, I went on a bit longer.
Thanks, Jonathan. Well, it's already a first important insight that you gave us here. And yeah, which is also great to hear and see that talking about accessibility, that your conference is online and available right now as well. So after being here at Israel Music Showcase Festival, we can tune in and check out a little bit of Global Toronto. So really cool to hear that. Manuel, over to you. You have a different, you're not producing your conference yourself, but you have a lot of involvements in different roles in several conferences. So share us a little bit more about yourself and how's that all come along.
You're muted, Manuel.
There. I'm Manuel Prestamo. Thank you very much. Delighted to be here with you today from Miami, Florida. I've been around for a long time. So my career started off as a symphony orchestra conductor, and I conducted orchestras all over the world. I've been a presenter with an award-winning series, the largest festival operation in Oklahoma. I've been a university dean. I've been on the boards of directors. I've been the chair of several national and regional conferences, but they were based in higher ed. But with the performing arts in the US, we have multiple conferences, basically broken up by geographic areas, and then a few by subject or topic, such as Chamber of Music America, and we have the big one, APAP, our national conference. For those, they have committees that may suggest programming, will select the showcase artists that are going to be featured. I've sat on numerous committees of that nature, and then I frequently present. When we did all live conferences, I presented usually 3 or 4 times throughout the year at APAP every year, and we produced showcases, 32 showcases generally for Arts Midwest, Performing Arts Exchange. And so I've attended, at this point, we've had several of them. I've attended all of them, and we're getting ready to open and upload all the material necessary for APAP, our big conference in January. And that's been my participation in the world of conferences.
Thanks, Manuel. I would get back to this later on. First of all, I'd like to speak more about the conferences itself with the conference people that we have in the room. So Dhari, can you let us know a little bit more about the topics that you had at the conference this year? What was your, when planning the conference, what was your thoughts behind, what did you want to achieve, and was it all overshadowed by COVID, or did you have like other topics? Of course, we cannot go into all the details, but you can maybe share with us some highlights and give us some takeaways that you got from the conference.
Yeah, sure. So we had a full conference panel, conferences program this year. Of course, some of it touched on Corona and pandemic, but as Jonathan mentioned, there has been many systematic problems within the music industry. I think like 2017, 2018, we saw a big shift that physical sales and downloads just don't make income people anymore, and it all shifts towards streaming and live events. And this year, with live events being cancelled out, it's a huge shift towards digital and streaming. So for us, it was very important to maintain focus on the systematic problems in the industry and to encourage communication and encourage the exchange of knowledge more on a community-based lateral level. And because it is also very different depending where you're sitting or living in the world, not just with the pandemic. With certain countries, they are fortunate enough to receive funding or support from the government. Other places where this is just not possible and people have to shift industries, they have to quickly adapt, be creative, find new sources of income. Also, in certain areas in the world, it's not always communicated to artists and managers and music industry representatives how to claim royalties, how to claim their deserved income from streaming services or from YouTube. And so this year, one of the highlights for us is we joined with UNESCO Brasiliart, which is a series of debates online run by UNESCO. And there were some interesting facts, I think, some interesting numbers I might just quickly mention. That in streaming services, they did an analysis, and it's based on 2018-2019 data from CISAC. And you see that North America and Europe, they are very used to claiming copyrights and making monetization of streaming services. And then you look in Africa and Latin America, and you see it's like 1%, 5% of artists who are actually claiming copyright. So for us, we had a big focus on this, which was brought into Womex by UNESCO. We had a great panelist joining the debate on that. We also had our Pan-Indigenous Network meeting, North American Network meeting. We had importance of artistic freedom of expression, run by Free News. Climate change, which is always a big topic. Yeah, sorry, I won't let the others say something.
Well, yeah, it sounds really interesting. One quick question, because you mentioned you had these networking sessions. So since it's virtual, how's the networking aspect going? How did you feel about that?
Yeah, I think, well, this weekend we also see that it really does work. It takes some creativity and some, you know, also being included, getting used to new systems, new formats, and people just embracing it and willing to learn new technologies. But I think it really does work. And as John was mentioning, it allows people from areas who might not have the resources or funds to travel, they can now take part. So that was a very big plus for us this year. And hopefully something that we can include in future planning.
Yeah, it makes it a lot cheaper to attend conferences all over the world. You don't need visas, you don't need so much travel costs, which is fantastic. Jonathan, you were mentioned already, so I'd like to ask you a bit more. So you have fantastic topics, big topics that you address with the conference, but maybe you can give us a bit more detail, like maybe some examples that you could that you did address in the conference, and that you kind of could solve or contribute to some sort of movement and change. So maybe you can give us a few more insights about what happened.
For sure. Thank you. Thanks for that. Yeah, no, solve is a big word, so I don't know if we'll get there, but certainly address, recognize, talk about, talk through. I think, you know, one of the main things, we use phrases. I know that the language in Canada and other places, everybody, we all have our own languages to speak about these issues. We talk about equity-seeking communities. We talk about BIPOC, which is Black, Indigenous, people of color. The LGBTQ2++ spectrum. I know that there are other letters in that thing that I'm not getting at, because it seems to be, this is all evolving language. And that's why I think we're all about evolving as well. We asked the community what the issues were that they wanted to tackle, and so that we could make something that wasn't designed to throw at people, but to build with people. And I know that, you know, Womex does that as well through their conference pitching programs. And so for us, particularly on the, let's call it there was a panel on the BIPOC experience, the experience of equity-seeking communities on stage, behind the scenes. One of the big things that came out afterwards was at least one of the panelists, if not a couple more, said that they had never felt that they were in a safe enough space to really share. And I think that that's a physical thing as well as an emotional, psychological thing. Part of being at home behind our computers is that we can maybe be a little, and brave, it sounds like a judgment, but be a little more confident in speaking truth to power, to put it in maybe a little bigger language than it might be. But the reality of sitting in a room with the folks that you know may be part of, or at least not part of the solution, and the willingness to speak about that sort of thing was removed. That whole issue was removed because people are just looking at their little dot on the middle of their laptop screen. So we definitely felt a lot of that energy and confidence from people. to speak their mind and to feel comfortable doing so. And I feel like we were almost more proud of the fact that people were comfortable doing so. Because again, I think for us, this term accessibility, to speak of quickly, another panel subject was about physical accessibility. People with disabilities talking about how their needs and aren't necessarily met in the live or online sphere. We tried to caption as much as possible. Language wasn't necessarily a thing that we could cover. We had a lot of different languages represented, but only English captions. But in terms of just making, sorry, I got distracted because Marcus seems to have disappeared. We are moderators.
Yeah, sorry, my internet just broke, and I'm back now. Sorry.
And here we are at accessibility. Like internet in Germany sometimes breaks. Lots of Canadians are in places without proper internet connections. And although we opened it up really to the participation, which is another thing that's going to get at a sort of the panel idea of accessibility, both in terms of physical, but also just feeling comfortable enough to join, and then having the technology. Online for us was not just to fix the short-term problem of the pandemic and not allowing us to gather, but it was about a long-term outlook for how global Toronto can be more inclusive. Maybe I'll stop there, and I know Manuel probably has some stuff to add as well.
Yeah, I have a quick follow-up question. Do you see like addressing this accessibility issue? Do you see a progress there? Like, do you see more and more areas get access, which means then more and more different artists, for example, can actually join the global music movement, so to say?
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, to Dhari's point earlier, there's been just in the last few years in particular, there's been a wider sense, like people in these communities, whether it's the people with disabilities or people of color or, you know, the LGBTQ community, they've known about these issues because they've lived them for all of their lives. But I think the interesting thing that's been happening in the last few years is the wider acknowledgement of the issue, which is such a one thing, on the one hand, silly to celebrate because it's like, why didn't you people know? But on the other hand, we know how hard it is, whether it's talking about a type of music getting out into the world or out of a community or an issue making sense to people. So I think just that recognition, and again, to go back to physical accessibility, you know, one thing that came up was like, you know, all humans are going to be a person with disability at some point. So it's a club that everyone's going to join, is how somebody put it. But I think the pandemic really sped up the membership process in that club, because suddenly, just the way that we live in the world now, we're forced to think in terms of how to make things more actually physically accessible, just because of the barriers that we all now face with the pandemic. So I do think there is progress being made, and unfortunately, it comes at a cost of having a pandemic. But absolutely.
Cool. I'm asking Manuel because based on what I heard so far, it seems, I mean, I know it's not the truth, but it felt a little bit like Corona is not a topic at all, although a very big topic, right, these days. So Manuel, maybe you can tell us a bit more about being a participant in lots of the conferences. What were your kind of learnings and takeaways around the impact of coronavirus and how to not solve it, as I know solve is a big word, more how to deal with it and yeah.
Well, I think because we're a set of conferences, all independent, nearly all of which have the same exhibitors. We share a lot of information and evaluation. When the first two conferences to go, Western Arts and Arts Midwest, Western Arts Alliance handles the West Coast, Arts Midwest handles the Midwest states in the middle of the country. and Performing Arts Exchange would have handled the East Coast, and they chose last year, they said conferences of this nature no longer serve a purpose. This is our last conference. We're closing down this part of our operation, which was a very sad thing for everyone to experience. But Western Arts and Arts Midwest, we pushed and pushed and pushed and said, go virtual. Finally, they went virtual, but they couldn't go public with it because of their hotel contracts that they had to get out of. They were finally released from the hotel contracts. They combined their two conferences into one big virtual conference. The expectation from everyone, well, nobody's gonna attend. No, it's not gonna be any good. They had the biggest attendance ever. Each conference generally drew around 600 people. If you double that number, so they're combining, but there should have been overlap. They should have only gone to like 1,000. They had 1,006 to 1,800 people all attending. There was great networking, and you could video conference, and you could track who came into a booth, and you could track everybody that showed up at a showcase, and you got printouts of who was there, and you got their email info, and there were group chats like this, and multiple subjects, and stuff on mental health, and marketing, and how to stream, and copyright. And the final event, everyone was posting, and you see all the little hearts and the thumbs up and all these wonderful comments, and it ended. Showcases that would have gotten in real life 14 people coming to see them for 20 minutes, got 184 hits, and everyone was ecstatic. That ends. We have performing, the Pennsylvania people had one. Florida threw a rock at the whole thing, and the Florida presenters all united and said, you know, by not going to Arts Midwest virtual, we can save enough money, pool our resources. We're going to have our own Florida presenters virtual conference. It didn't go nearly as well. They didn't have the breakout rooms. So it was somewhat disappointing. But they came first. Then came Arts Midwest and WA. Now we're getting ready for APAP. And we're in the middle of a horrific turf war, even though my booth at APAP last year cost $2,000. My membership was $500. It's $2,500. My registration would have been around another $500, plus airline tickets and all that. I would have paid APAP $3,000. This year, the way it's structured, my total cost will be about $500. No hotel, no airline. Nevertheless, and my costs are typical of others, there has been this horrific outcry, mostly from the agents, the managers, and the artists, because Arts Midwest and WA, yes, we did a lot of networking, and we met a lot of new people, and there was a lot of communication. And basically every single agent I have talked to has said, and I haven't sold one single show. We have not generated any contracts. So they're saying, look, some of them, the smaller ones, I can't pay the rent for next month. I have no income. We have groups breaking up, groups that were full-time artists. We have one group, the lead artist said, I went out and got a real estate license, and our group will break up at the end of December because we can't eat. We have nothing, we have no money. We're gone. We're seeing the collapse of numerous agencies that have been around for 40 years, shutting down. They can't do it. The major agency out of Fort Lauderdale that booked the talent on all cruise ships going out of Fort Lauderdale and Miami, the two biggest cruise ports in the world, is down to the mother and the daughter. All the agents have been let go. They can't pay for them. There are no cruises. There's nothing. So APAP will happen. It will have a new focus in that, for example, our keynote speaker will be Dr. Fauci. The way they've set up is fabulous. There are going to be breakout sessions and video conferencing and private meeting setups and showcases. We produce showcases. When we were live at the regionals, we produced 32 showcases at each conference. For the Arts Midwest Walk Conference, because of the virtual situation, we were only allowed to do 6. So all income from showcase production is gone. My colleague, who's the two of us are the 2 biggest showcase producers, talked to her last night. She says she's broke. Her company's going out of business. They're done. They have no showcase work. What's she going to do? So we've got tremendous upheaval. And the conferences are providing good opportunities for communication, but unfortunately, most of our communication is very not good. Yeah, and I don't think it's. I think the root cause of it is you can't open up your theater, you can't present anything, and they don't dare present virtual because they don't know if it's going to sell or not. So we're all just, frozen, waiting for the virus to go away.
Well, thanks for sharing these insights. Thanks for sharing these insights, because I think it's really helpful to understand what the digital shift from a lot of conferences has enabled. And of course, on the other hand, it reminds us in which terrible situation we are. I want to shift the question more to Jonathan and Dhari regarding this difficult situation. Have you in the conference addressed some sort of new solutions for artists to for example do digital shows, or is there any other ideas or suggestions that you discussed during the conferences to support artists out of this current situation? Yeah, Dhari, you can start if you want, and Jonathan.
Okay. Yeah, so this year we had virtual showcases, which obviously is a completely different creature to a live showcase. You cannot compare. It's totally different. And this year, for the first time, to try and humanize this situation and to try and get some more insights into the artists, their lives, how they're going in the situation, we ran short 5 to 10 minute interviews. So I match made a journalist with the artist, and then they recorded an interview, which we then tied together with their virtual showcase. So this was one way to get some more insight into the artists in the current world that we find each other, and also to try and attract more and generate more media, more press around the showcase artists. And this did have a huge roll-on effect that we had. We saw many artists perform or have their music play on different radio stations across the world because of this experience. And that was something very positive this year that we would like to try and carry on for next year, which, and I think it's the opportunity and the time for all of us to look, okay, how are we running these conferences, and what can we now get rid of, and what can we now bring in, and how do we move forward to try and benefit everybody involved. And things are just, yeah, we're being forced into a little reboot, I think. And for the showcases, it's really hard to say at the moment. Also here, as Manuel's saying, it's a bit frozen there. Here is also a bit frozen. And many festivals that we speak to, they're going to reassess February, March for Northern Europe, I know at least, as to whether they go ahead or not. Another festival I work for, they're splitting the festival into 2 weekends. So it's, yeah, I'm very curious how we're going to do it, how other festivals are going to do it, how the artists are going to find it, because that also puts then a lot of stress on the artists to travel around, play multiple times at what would normally be one event. And yeah, it's a definitely changing situation.
For Global Toronto, because we were in July, it was even less clear why a showcase would necessarily be valuable. I mean, I don't know if you all remember May and June, but like they were certainly here in Canada and Toronto in particular, it was dark times because we just, like it was starting to open up with outdoor pop-up stuff, but you couldn't really gather. So what we said was initially, we said the showcases are canceled. It's not a showcase because we did not, one of the things we do at Global Toronto is we pay a very basic, but something, an honorarium to performing artists. We don't really love the showcase model that's in effect right now, which is artists, like it's all on the artist. I mean, we do have the blessing of a lot of funding in this country, and artists can get support to travel to showcases, whether domestic or international. The other thing is we knew that if we were going to have showcases that we would need to be helpful on the production side. And so we just couldn't make that commitment. We just didn't have the budget or the time, frankly. So what we'd said was to artists for their showcase, like, this is a great opportunity for you to get to know the artist, because ultimately we are in service of the artist. All these big conversations are in service of making a sector and an ecosystem that can benefit artists. Opportunities in 2020 for an artist are not just a gig at a place. There's just so much more, and we're still figuring out what that all is. So our showcases were very conversational. We said to the artist, we'll give you a 20-minute block, but don't use half of it. Don't even use half of it for videos that already exist, to give people a sense of your music. We want to know about you. And that's something that, again, we also want to consider in terms of lessons for post, whenever this post period is. I think for us particularly, we're looking for, you know, the expressions, the cultural and artistic expressions that are not, that are underrepresented. So there is a story there, and maybe the artist in words isn't the best person to tell that story, but certainly a conversation with someone either who is the artist or around the artist can bring out that story. And we think that that's so important. As a presenter who's worked in various situations, I know that at least half of the booking process for me is knowing who it is that we're dealing with, why they do what they do, and what they do and how. And so for us, that's a show. Like, I also think that the business of conferences, and I totally feel like the agent side struggle that Manuel's talking about and the artist side struggle. I think we're talking in sort of these big and like dreamy ways of how conferences bring people together, and we're not forgetting about the business, but I think for us it's about like resetting, reimagining what the business looks like, and therefore what's a showcase? Why are you doing a showcase? And I think these days we know that people are hiring folks to do online showcases. There are people that are still reluctant. So I do think that there is that opportunity there. The question becomes how you lower the barriers. And that means production support. That means for an artist to actually do a quality broadcast. As a presenter that wants to present internationals and people that live outside of Toronto, we have a great little space we can bring people into with great gear and great people. But if you can't get to our space, how do we make sure that we're still sharing with our audiences the amazingness that's out there, even in a place that doesn't have the right, you know, PA or stage or cameras and lights? I mean, it's a whole new universe. As a presenter now, we're suddenly filmmakers, even though we have no business making films, but we do, because what else are we going to do? So I don't know, that sort of got away from the question, I guess, but anyway, I just wanted to throw that out there.
Well, thanks, Jonathan. Thanks, Dhari, for sharing this, because the common ground here is, I think, having these conversations and giving space to artists is a very valuable opportunity. And I heard it from many other showcase festivals as well, so that they felt this is a different type of presenting, but it's a very, especially this year and also in the years to come, very valuable one. And it brings us closer together. And one good news is that technology, like prices for technology drop, and it's very much more affordable to now, you know, stream a concert than it has been 5 years ago. So we get, I think, in the right direction, and looking at a post-COVID period, you mentioned it already, Jonathan, is won't totally change. That it won't. It will be, you know, some sort of hybrid with digital and physical shows and events. Looking to the future, since we have only like 1 minute left, actually. Looking to the future, Manuel, I'd give you these last wise words. What do you think? How will performances change in a post-COVID world?
Hearing from meetings with groups of presenters virtually, and speaking of that, the consensus is, if you do not have 3 cameras at your facility, good sound equipment, and the ability to stream live, go find the money and get the equipment and get the personnel. The assumption is, when we return to live, it'll be a combination of the live performance simultaneously streamed out. And I think that's the assumption most are making. The assumption currently is, do showcase, because you need to stay connected to your audiences, being the presenters who will buy your shows, because the assumption is, when things begin to open, there's going to be a very strong appetite for people to engage with each other and attend events. I would say for artists, the biggest thing, whether in a showcase or a pre-recorded stream, or a stream you're going to make available for sale on demand, if you will, is that the camera work. Think of the audience member attending a live event. Their eyes roam, and maybe they catch something significant you were trying to communicate in a certain part of the stage, and maybe they don't. But now you are the eyes of the audience, and you filter what the camera will look at and how close it will look at it and when it will back away from it. And so all of a sudden, the editing process, the filming and editing, really does become a critical part of the finished product. You can't just throw up 1 or 2 cameras and have somebody just flip-flop around with them at will. I would say the artistic creator, be it the choreographer, the music director, the lead in the group, needs to think very carefully and creatively, so that it's not just what you were doing before, but it's what you were doing before with the added bonus of a lot of visual appeal. And I think, you need to consider people's attention span. I think if you just have a static image for too long, they get bored and finally go, goodbye. Or they start doing what I see happening on screen here. They start reading other stuff and answering email, and they lose their concentration. So the video production side, I think there's going to be a whole new great opportunity for young people coming into the job market, if they've got editing and filming skills that understand music and dance and theater, because your average film newscast filmmaker does not and cannot give you a good product. So
thanks, Manuel. I think that is a very, very good kind of closing remark. We thanks so much to all of you, since we're running kind of out of time, and I think we really have to end the session. But thanks so much for sharing these insights. And I think there's so much valuable information. I see the session is recorded, so I hope that it's available to people who can't attend right now, and to share this information with as many as possible. I think thank you so much for taking your time early in the morning and during the day to join us and have this session. Thanks again.
Thanks, everyone.
bye.
Thank you very much for Marcus and Manuel and Jonathan and Dhari. It was very, very interesting to hear that. We're going straight now to the next panel. Those of you who wants to keep on talking about the old subject, about the necessity of conferences, we have a room in the breakout rooms called Q&A. You can go and talk about the subject there. And we're moving now. I want to present to you. Wait, a lot of feedback here. A lot of feedback. Oh yeah. Okay. So here is Chris. Wait. Here is Chris. Hey, Chris.
Hey.
And I want to present to you. Wait. This is very primitive technology.
Very primitive.
Dhari, you're still with us? Yeah, right. Okay.
מה זה להוסיף? להכניס?
שומעים אתכם. Okay, here's Kalben from Turkey.
Hi, Kalben.
And we have Kobi. Wait, no. And Andrew. Hello, Andrew from Germany.
There's Andrew.
Hey, pleasure to meet you guys.
Yeah, likewise.
And we have Kobi from Israel. Okay, so I'll give Chris the talking 30 and enjoy.
So do I mute as I go, or do we just leave everything just open, I think, right?
I think you can leave things open or just unmute when you're talking.
Yeah.
I just wanted to say to all the people who are watching that we are also live on Facebook and we'll stay there afterwards. Enjoy the last panel. Bye-bye.
Okay, we're jumping into this. I just met you all like 4 seconds ago, but I'm really looking forward to this. The name of this panel is Music is the Weapon. It comes from a Fela Kuti album, the great Nigerian Afrobeat inventor actually, and also a political activist. Actually, the whole title of the album is curious. It's actually Music is the Weapon of the Future. That's the actual title of the album. I think maybe we should come back to that at some point. We are certainly living in an age of protest. We can see that in the last decade, Taksim Square, Arab Spring, this summer in America and elsewhere, Black Lives Matter. Also, the other side of the political spectrum, anti-COVID restrictions, protests, anti-government protests are ongoing in Israel, in Slovenia, where I live. Every Friday, we still have protests. We're at about the 22nd week or something of that. Women's protests that Kalben has been involved with in Turkey. Also, we see it in Poland. I think it's curious. I think if we go back a decade in music, there was some sense that the idea of music as a protest medium was somewhat dead, or just if maybe not dead, maybe diluted and had lost some of its potency. So I think we should talk about that sort of thing. And what role does music play in protest movements? What are its possibilities? What are its limitations? Where do art and politics intersect in individuals and in movements and in just our basic enjoyment of music? I'll just do some quick introductions. I'm a record company manager owner. I run a label called Glitterbeat Records. We're based in Germany and in Slovenia. I work with some very politically, let's say, politically charged artists, people like Tammy Crest, who they're a Tuareg group from Mali, now living in exile in Algeria. The whole center of their lyrical, musical perspective is based on the independence of the Tuareg people, the creation of a independent Tuareg state called Azawad. Same goes with another artist of ours, Aziz Ibrahim. She grew up in the refugee camps on the Algerian border with Western Sahara. Her entire musical oeuvre is based on songs about the longing for homeland and for the creation of an independent Western Sahara. So we have a lot of, also, we have, I should also mention Laraj. We started working with her this year. She is based in Israel, of course, and her music is about building a bridge between her Persian roots in Iran, a place she's never lived, but she reached out to musicians there. Clandestine recording sessions happened, and this was a really good example of a political bridge being built. Just to quickly introduce our panel, and you guys will do a better job of this than me, but Kalben from Turkey. She's a Turkish singer-songwriter. She just released her third album. She recently won Woman of the Year title by GQ Turkey, and she is an active dominant figure in last summer's women's protest happenings. Kobi Farhi is from the band Orphaned Land. He's the lead singer of a successful Israeli metal band, considered pioneers of the so-called Oriental metal. Kobi is one of the most loved Israeli musicians in the Islamic world, with fans in Syria, Lebanon, Egypt, Turkey, and other countries. Andrew Campbell is a CEO manager of a company called Steam Music Management. They're active in a lot of different fields: music publishing, sync, consulting, distribution, promotion. Brings 25 years of experience in the music business. There's another interesting asterisk with Andrew. In the late 80s, Andrew was working as a journalist during the time when the Berlin Wall was coming down, and there was the reunification of East and West Germany, which was a thing that was also built around a protest movement on the East German side. So that's stuff out of the way. I would like to maybe each of you just to quickly speak about your own experience with protest movements, and if relevant, how music actually merges with that. Kalben, maybe you could start.
Hello all. I'm really very excited and happy to be here. It's a great room to be in, especially during these times where I miss seeing people who are entwined with music. At the beginning of my musical career, I didn't have a strategy at all. Like, I didn't know how to create a personal space which could not be invaded by the concept of state, government, tax responsibilities, being a woman, and being a woman at the verge of Middle East, and also with a face turned to the Western civilizations. I didn't know anything at the beginning of it. I was just a musician. I just had my guitar. I was just making my music. I was just singing my songs. And in a little time, I started to realize that my industry was filled with men, and my industry's ideals were based on male ideals, and they were the ones running the business, and they were the ones making the decisions. And most musicians were men, most record company owners were men, mixing, mastering men, And then I started realizing that this was happening all around the world as well. So kind of became important that I had boobs and a uterus, in time. I didn't know that before, but it started to make a difference in time, and then I started realizing that women were afraid of working in the music industry because they were afraid that their ideas would not be valued, and that they couldn't work night time, and then they wouldn't be able to have a proper family life if they became musicians or technicians in the music industry or became workers of the stage. So in time, I started to formulate a strategy, which was like my own independent space. And I started, at the beginning, I wasn't even aware that wearing my jeans and shirt was a revolution, but it was. Girls started wearing jeans and whatever the clothes they wanted to wear, and they didn't have to follow the feminine dress code anymore. And there were young kids buying their guitars and sending their songs to me, which was like a great, great, great beginning. And people were like not caring so much to the outside, but they were more into music. As I was singing, some people were singing along with me, and our ideas were changing together. And then in my nomadic existence, I decided to manipulate stuff. You know, like can I create little tactics? Can I carve some little holes in the big system, in the big industry? So I gave a speech about bosses in one of my concerts. This goes out to my ex-bosses, my ex-employers who didn't pay our wages and salaries, but instead went to United States and went to European countries for having a holiday, and then came back with a 20,000 pound vase or a $15,000 pair of shoes and showed them to us and still didn't pay our salaries. This song, let this song penetrate into you, you know. And then that just went fucking viral, and people were fucking insane. And people loved it because everybody was having exactly the same kind of equality in their workspace, regardless of being a man or a woman or a non-binary person or an LGBTQI individual. It doesn't matter. Everybody is exploited in the workspace. So, and then I went one step further, and I was like, in a mainstream newspaper, I said I fell in love with a woman, because none of my big pop stars in my country never come out. They never say anything about their real orientation. They never care about that little kid who is 12 years old and who is living in a remote part of Turkey in southeast or eastern part, and who feels so fucking weird that this kid commits suicide at the age of 15 because he or she doesn't know what to do with her impulses and emotions, her natural self. So sometimes people care about their careers and their popularity. I get that, but I didn't. I wanted to burn my career. And I just said I fell in love with a woman, and it wasn't even a coming out story. I wasn't coming out. I just wanted to say it. I just wanted it to be normal to say it. And then I was lynched for like 2 months. It was a huge lynch campaign, people telling me I was going to burn in hell. But at the same time, there were little kids and young people sending me messages like, and families like, thank you, because now I don't feel weird. Thank you. It's a great gift, isn't it? Like I was digging another hole in the system. And then I started the feminine dictionary because I realized that in my language, words were all very masculine. They were not feminine at all. So I wanted to start a feminine dictionary where people from all genders and sexual orientations could participate and create their own words. I wanted to create a new dictionary because, like, there is no word for the shame of menstruation in my language. There is no word for the beautiful feeling that comes from seeing the light between the leaves on an autumn evening. Like, there is no word for two flowers falling in love and becoming bigger than they normally should. I wanted to create this both romantic and idealistic space, and people participated, and now it's no longer mine. It's not my property at all. We have hundreds of people contributing to it, and I think it's going to become a book. And I'm so excited about it because when something becomes a book, then it's, you know, it takes its space outside of the social media, social sphere, and it becomes something public in a more conservative sense. And I'm feeling so excited about it as well. And recently, in a newspaper, I told that I was as free as a white and heterosexual male. Because in my country, if you want to be free and liberated, you got to be white and you got to be heterosexual and you got to be a man. That's the rule. That's how it goes. I mean, and I said it out loud, and people were so enthusiastic about it because they are as bored as I am. They are so bored. They just want to be free. I'm so bored of being a woman, of protesting against femicides. I am bored. I'm sick of it. A young girl is murdered and she's buried in the woods, and it's July 2020, and we are in a march. And I'm so ashamed of myself for being a human out there, just telling people to leave us alone, to leave us alone. There was like 29 femicides in November 2020 in my country, and 10 suspicious women deaths. There was even a woman falling down from the next flat where I live in, and the way the cops saw it was she was drunk. So I'm living in this sphere where I have to like overprove myself all the time, overwork. So I go and work with non-governmental organizations like we're going to stop femicides because I have to do this. Or I have to go to BBC and I have to tell, I no longer want to think like a man and act like a man. I want to be proud of being a woman. So in 2020, I still have to emphasize that I'm a woman. I have to emphasize that as a woman, I deserve to live. I deserve to wear whatever the fuck I want. I deserve to marry the person I love, or I deserve to stay alone as long as I want to stay alone. I deserve to make my own music. I deserve to make as much money as a man in the same position as I am from the same educational background. I deserve education. I deserve not being forced into marriage with the person who raped me at the age of 12. This is the reality of my country. And this is the reality of so many countries out there. It's not just about my place. It's not. So within this physical space, as one of my favorite guys, Henry Lefebvre, puts it, I am trying to find my territory outside of the national territory, which is mapped and modified and transformed by network circuits like canals and roads and commercial and financial circuits like academia, like banks, like schools, like the political spheres, like the cabinet, like the parliament, because I don't belong there. I naturally don't belong there, unfortunately. So I have to carve my own space every time for everyone from any race, any religion, any language, any gender, and any identity. So in my third album, Kalben, which means Miss Heart, I especially used Miss, MS, because I don't want this woman to be married or to be single. I want this woman to be free of that idea of, marriage or singlehood. I hate that. So it's Miss Heart. And in Miss Heart, I dedicate this song to people who are women, men, and who are non-binary, who don't identify as men or women. And no one ever did that before. No one ever cared about non-binary people who don't want to identify as a man or a woman. So as an artist in time, as I had all this love around me, I decided to carve spaces and tunnels for people who were weirded out, who were discriminated against, who didn't feel like they had a space in this land or in this world, because I have the power, don't I? I can sing, I have my guitar. I can sing it. So it's reflected on my songs as well. I have a song called The Wound, which talks about the common traumas of a society, which talks about the coup d'etats this country went through, the military regimes, this undemocratic regime we are going through, the Daisy Park events in 2013. It all has these inside. So these things are infiltrating into my music, and I'm experiencing my music through the eyes of people. And we together have the power to manipulate what this society traditionally and politically dictates us. So we are finding our new ways together through music. It's magic. I love music. I never found a better way in life when it comes to conquering the hearts and minds of people towards something beautiful, towards something enlightened, towards something humane. So music is the best weapon that has been designed by humankind. That's how I believe so. And I adore Fela Kuti, and it's such an amazing thing to be here. Thank you for sharing this excitement with me. Thank you. Thank you, Chris.
My pleasure. Kobi, what are your experiences with, let's say, political music or protest music and protest movements?
Hi, everyone. Happy to be here. Kalben, I bow to your words and to everything that you said. It's very exciting to hear you. I started Orphaned Land 30 years ago when I was a teenager. And I've been a fan of protest music from South America. There is a movement called the Nueva Canción. Singers like Mercedes Sosa, Victor Jara, who was actually even murdered by his own regime of Pinochet in the 70s. It always shocked me that a regime had to kill a singer due to his messages and words. When I started Orphaned Land, like Kalben, I didn't have any kind of strategy, or I didn't have anything that I aimed for. I just wanted to reflect the reality of the place that I live in. I live in Israel, which is a melting pot of Jews coming from so many places. And of course, there is the geopolitical religious conflict. The Holy Land is, in a way, holy to the three monotheistic religions, and they always fight, and they always claim who is the better son to their whatever god. I always thought that the Holy Land is much more of an orphaned land. But so all the lyrics and themes that we have written with the band were always around the macro situation of the Middle East. Not from an Israeli perspective, but from a very objective perspective, in a way that a Muslim or an atheist or a Christian or a Jew or a settler or a kid in Gaza could find themselves into these messages and lyrics and themes. I never wrote songs about my personal life. It was always about the macro situation of the Middle East. And the greatest thing that happened to us is that on the year 2001, the band was at some sort of a hiatus of 6 years. We didn't do nothing for 6 years. And then an email came to me, and I saw the email is from an Arab guy, and it had a file with a video in it. And when I opened the video, I could hear the music of my band playing. I didn't see his face, but I could see that when he pulls off the sleeve of his shirt, I could see that he have the band logo just as I have on my arm. So I was leaning back and I was asking myself, it's fair enough for an Arab in the Arab world to listen to an Israeli band, because music, it's the weapon. It enters our hearts without even asking. But did I actually see now an Arab with a tattoo on his arm of an Israeli band? Wow. That was a life-changing moment. I always had goosebumps from music. I always had tears in my eyes from music. I always appreciated great lyrics. But I didn't understand how strong music can be until I saw an Arab with a tattoo of an Israeli band. I mean, just imagine, you would never see, I don't know, a fan of Liverpool wearing a Manchester United t-shirt. So why if that will not happen on football, how come it could happen between people who are in a conflict, between people who in a way kill each other? And that was a very shocking moment to me. And ever since then, this is my life project. This is what I do. I try to bring people together with music, with lyrics, and as Fela Kuti said wisely, I use music as my weapon, and we succeed to do wonders, much more than politicians, of course, obviously. And it's definitely a privilege to be a musician, especially in these times, especially in the Middle East, especially where, you know, Israelis and Arabs, or Israelis and Palestinians, are still in a conflict. We just a few years ago, we toured with a Palestinian band, and the main theme of our tour was that at times where our people do not succeed to live together in the same landscape, look at us, we live together on a tour bus. We share coffee, we share air, we share water. We live together in a bus. If we are living together in a bus, our people definitely can find a solution to live together in a very big landscape. So to sum it up, this is what we do through music. Definitely music is the weapon. I have seen proofs over and over again to that. So thank you all for listening to me and for being here with us.
I think that's great. Also, it echoes what Colin was saying about, I wrote it down, and I thought it was wonderful, this idea of creation of alternative space. You know, that music is if we don't actually sense that thing that we're striving for right there in front of us, we can create it. You know, at first it's an imaginative act. It's an act of artistic projection. But as you said, then you can make it very fundamental when you're living on a tour bus with a mixture of people from all over. Andrew, what I'm interested in, maybe where this sort of this kind of issues with protest music and politics, where does this connect with the music industry? I mean, and also please talk about any personal experiences. I think the idea of being the fact that you were a journalist in Berlin during that time is also quite interesting.
Thank you, Chris, first of all, and hi to everybody from cold, gray Berlin for 9 months now at home during the stupid pandemic. Well, let me go back a little bit first into my personal history as a journalist. So, like you said, I was a journalist during the Cold War and a photographer and I was actually also a foreign correspondent, so I was able to not only had the experience how to live in an isolated city in West Berlin, I also had the opportunity to go basically on a daily basis as a journalist to East Berlin. And as I was responsible in the news agency I was working for the cultural aspect of what's going on both sides of the wall, I could monitor on the one hand how the political cultural movement was in West Berlin, which was very strong by that time. I mean, we had basically, I mean, I grew up with meetings. I went to so many meetings. I got beaten up by the police. I knew the smell of tear gas in my nose, but this was part of just, you know, if you were being like in a political active punk rock society, it was just, yeah, of course, if a teacher got fired at school, you went on the street and 20,000 students were on the street protesting against the West Berlin government. This was just a normal case. And you expressed yourself in clubs and shows, and we had a huge punk scene in our city, and this was just a normal life. When you then went to East Berlin at this time, it changed pretty much drastically. I mean, I got arrested two times by the East German intelligence. And was sitting in jail for a couple of hours. And I guess the only reason why they treated me more or less nice was because I have an American passport, and my father was working at the East and West Berlin US Embassy. If I would have had a different passport, it would I probably would have been disappeared for a couple of months. As you can imagine, I was going to a lot of concerts in East Berlin, and I was chased all the time by civil police. There was always somebody around me who was checking out to whom I'm going to talk, what's I going to do, what kind of pictures I'm going to do. And as soon as you try to also during meetings try to take pictures of protesters, they try to take your camera away, to try to take the films away. You basically were just on the run all the time, making sure that nobody gonna catch you and you get back safe to West Berlin. On the other hand, I mean, I had a lot of interesting talks with bands on the east side, but it always needed to take place in the shadow, as like behind a church or something, on a graveyard, in the shadows in the evening, because this was the only way where you basically could talk freely to bands in East Berlin. After the wall came down in 1989, 1990, I had the opportunity to work for Sony Music for nearly 3 years, and so I was working for bands like Public Enemy, like Bruce Springsteen, and I grew up with bands like Rage Against the Machine, Bad Religion, Anti-Flag, U2, Pink Floyd, and so on. So all these bands, which are very political, have a very political speech. And then during this time, then at one point it all got silence, I think, in the in terms of music, and it switched pretty much into this pop dance, Euro dance, Nobody cared so much. Everybody was happy that the world is getting united, and the music scene, from my perspective, became very unpolitical for like maybe 10-15 years in the early 2000s, where lyrics became not so important anymore. The signing policy of the record industry became totally different. It was all about like making quick money, and try to feed the masses as much as possible, but don't interfere don't interfere so much with let's say political issues, because everything was about being happy, until a couple of years now, maybe the last 5 years, where music starts to become now very, very political again, with the Black Lives Movement and all those issues. What's happening now? What's happening in the last two, 3 years, all over the world? Also, obviously, with the Green Revolution. So that music industry, I think, try to reinvent themselves. And realize that music has a strong voice, and music can be heard, and music is sometimes maybe the only opportunity to express themselves, especially in countries where you can't go openly on the street and fight for a certain political opinion. But then it also shows how absurd it can get when you look into the Trump campaign, for example, which are using a song where he is dancing on stage, and this song is about this is a YMCA song. This song is about the freedom of gay people who can meet in New York in a youth hostel and have their first sexual experience. And he's dancing on. I don't know if he even understands what the song is about, but it makes it completely funny to see this man who's racist, who's against everything what we are standing up for, and then he's dancing on stage and think this is the coolest song ever on earth, that this is how you do your how you do your campaign. And the song still has a very, very strong message, even so that I don't think that he's aware of what is the song about in general. But yeah, I think we are going back to the roots from where we are coming from the late 80s or 70s, obviously, of course, and the early 90s, and yeah, go back and raise our voices.
Yeah, thanks for that. I agree. I think the space is opening up. It's what we do with it that matters, I think. Kalben, in your case, with the positions you've taken in the Turkish market, do you feel like you receive commercial resistance from, let's say, the corporate realm, or are you just going right underneath it and ignoring it and opening up your own free space that you will use the way you want to use it?
Thank you for the amazing question, dear Chris. I just recently became independent, which was the beginning story of my career anyways, but I felt like I had to be occupied. I had to be institutionalized for years. And now I'm independent again. So these institutions do not bother me. I love resigning from institutions, and I just resigned recently again. And I love working with brands that are aware and that do not afford carelessness. You know, some brands, they know about human rights and they care about human rights and they want to spend their money on human rights. And I like those brands, and I like making people more visible through those brands, our ideas more visible through those brands. And in the meantime, I make money and I share it with my team and the NGOs that I support. So it's always a good deal when you speak your mind, when you have your own space, and when you are willing to be broke and jailed and outnumbered. I think it is the best freedom of all times, like not caring about being popular and rich or sexy or beautiful anymore. You know, like you just give it up and you choose another path because that path is already your path, and you no longer deny yourself the very, very beautiful experience of walking the path. I don't feel like I have any trouble financially because I already have a huge tax debt and I can't be jailed before I pay that. So I'm basically free. That's how I see it. Thank you.
Kobi, do you, with this position that you've taken with your music, which I thought was really interesting, when you described that your concerns, like lyrically, are really macro, because I don't think there's a lot of people that can really say that, you know, as songwriters and so on. Do you run into any either corporate or governmental censorship, or are you having to walk some kind of tightrope, you know, very careful line, or?
It's a very interesting question, because in a way, Israel would be the country that allows me to use my freedom of speech. I would say the best country in the Middle East, so to speak. That doesn't make Israel still the best place to live. But let me just give you an example. A fan of ours in Egypt, he had our album at his home, and the police got into his home, found the CD, and he was accused with blasphemy and was thrown to jail for 6 months. Now, just take a moment to imagine that an Egyptian guy, and Egypt is a country that has a peace agreement with Israel, but a guy in Egypt was thrown to jail for 6 months because of his musical taste, because he was liking this Israeli band. We as a band didn't have any sort of censorship in Israel. I can definitely say that the radio ignores us completely. I don't think that our songs are radio friendly anyway. But like Kalben said, we're not here to be beautiful, to be sexy, or to, I don't know, sell something that anyone wants. We're here to be faithful to what we do. And I think that it's okay, because people find the way to our music. I would say that our fans are the bravest people that I've ever met, because I'm from Israel, but fans of ours from Syria, from Egypt, who risk themselves to listen to our music. We had a Lebanese dancer that came to us one day and wanted to raise the flags of Lebanon and Israel all together, and I was strongly suggested to her that we shouldn't do it, because we will have a great PR and she will have a great disaster in her hometown and country. And she insisted on doing that, because I think that she has this bravery that Kalben has. She has this bravery of, enough, I want to be a woman, I want to say whatever I want, I want to raise any flag that I want, and I want to do it without anyone judging me and without anyone putting me in jail and stuff like that. So of course she was persecuted right after that, and she couldn't come back to Lebanon for a lot of time. I guess she knew what she was doing, but still, you spoke about censorship, so you would still see how people, especially our fans, not us, but our brave fans, are, one is thrown to jail, the other one is being persecuted. There are, of course, many other stories. And I think that in general, people always try to put you in a box. I mean, one of the things that people always try to figure out about the band is, okay, so where do you belong? Are you right wing? Are you left wing? Are you opposing to that? Are you agreeing with that? They always try to put you in a box, and we always try to explain that cliche that if the dove wants to fly, it needs its both wings. And if I play a show everywhere, it could be in Berlin, it could be in Tel Aviv, it could be in Istanbul, where we played numerous times, you could easily see in the crowd all genders, all kinds of people, whether if they are Muslims or Jews or Christians or atheists or homo, lesbians, young, old, and you realize that you have this privilege to use a universal language, to use a unifying language. And that is something that gives you a very unique power, let's call it that way. The musician, the poet, especially the one who deals with protest subjects, it has this privilege to use this amazing universal power in his hand, the ability to unify people. If I would sit down with two enemies and I would need to bridge with them, and I would need to create some sort of a communication channel with them, I will always go to music, because one always think that he has nothing in common with his enemy. And I think that if you could find something in common between them, it would easily be through music. And if they both love a song of Kalben, for example, so there it is. They can speak about Kalben for 15 minutes, and they see that, and they could see that they have a lot in common before they reach and talk about their problems and conflicts. They could create a ground of respect towards each other, to see that they have things in common, to see that they share the same musical points of views. And that is what's happening in our shows, because if in our shows comes a settler from the Israeli settlements and a Palestinian Arab, so they both like my band, and obviously they are completely different in their political points of views and things like that. So I would say that you cannot censor this. Any censorship would not help in this case. As you can see, our fans are so brave, and if they had to be arrested years ago and run away from their homes, today it's bigger, and they wave their flags with us, and more and more and more people are meeting us in our shows. My mom and grandparents are still concerned when I'm going to play in places like Paris or Istanbul. They always tell me, why should you do it? You're an Israeli, you're a Jew. But I always come back with gifts, lots of gifts. So I would say that these messages cannot be censored. And the more you will try, music will prevail, because this is the power of music and lyrics. Thank you.
That's beautiful, super inspiring. Andrew, Kalben talked about that there are brands, and there are even, let's say, corporate partnerships that can be made for artists that are, let's say, taking I don't see anything that's been said here that seems controversial, but obviously in certain contexts, unfortunately, a lot of what's been said here is controversial, but hard to believe, really. But do you think that there is a glass ceiling for certain kinds of artists with political viewpoints, or are we, as you indicated a little bit at the end of what you said originally, are we actually now maybe just slowly moving into a more open space that accommodates, variety of viewpoints and lifestyles and so on?
I think the point is, or the most important point is probably in which country are you living. Right. From the perspective living in Germany, and also when I look to my kids, probably music or express themselves by music and expressing a certain political statement is not so common, or was not so common, like it was in the past, like how I grew up. And obviously, over here we are in a very, let's say, comfortable bubble. When I look to other countries, even if I'm going to look to the US. So obviously we have also our issues, but the German music industry doesn't feel so politically involved, let's say it like this, when it comes to the music itself. Of course, we are very the industry, and especially now during the Corona times, becomes politically very, very strongly. And I think Corona made us the first time that all parts in the music industry actually started to join. It doesn't matter if it's manager, publisher, record label, concert promoter, etc. Because we realized that the politicians, the government, don't hear us. They benefit from all kind of music genres and all kind. It doesn't matter if it's classical music or metal. Basically, they benefit a lot of from our culture experience, but they give a fucking shit. Till before the Corona virus started, it was pretty much everybody. If you were a booking agent, you were cooking your own soup in the booking agent community. If you were a publisher, you were cooking your soup in the publishers community, and so on. And with Corona, it was the first time that really all those communities came together and said, okay, we need to start to fight together. We need to build a strong voice and fight for that. We have demands that how important culture is for a society, and that you just can't leave the culture dying by a pandemic, and don't take care about it. And only with the pandemic we realized, I think we are the sixth or seventh biggest part of the economy in Germany, with I don't know how many billion euros through the cultural industry are made every year. But nobody was aware of it, because everybody, just was walking on its own and try to make a living out of it. And obviously, now that with the pandemic, we all came together and start to also understand what the problems of an artist might be at the moment, what the problems of the PR company is at the moment, and so on, and start to support each other and turn down walls which were also in between the music industry, that and try to fight and against somebody outside, so the politicians, and try to express how important cultural in all ways is right now. And I think this is probably the biggest change I can see. I mean, of course, I also had the chance, I think like 8-9 years ago, or even longer, to go to Israel and explore the Israeli music scene. I think I was, our company was one of the first ones who actually went to Israel and got invited into Israel. I mean, I'm one of the dinosaurs in this conference, because I think I took part, besides of one year, in all of the conferences in the last year. And I'm really, really proud and excited that I could join and be part of this journey and bring bands from Israel abroad, because I know how difficult it was in the beginning, how not only people were afraid if when I went with an Israeli band on tour, that they said, oh, you can't do this, you can't do this. We played in Kreuzberg, which is in Berlin, like a kind of maybe a rabically district, and everybody was totally shocked, and we had police. We were surrounded. I mean, this is the first time I did a concert in Kreuzberg. We were guarded by police. Because they were so afraid that there would be some terror attacks going on, and I said, this is complete bullshit, because hey, I'm pretty sure nothing will happen, and we will probably have a nice crowd of Arabs dancing with a nice crowd of Jews, and nobody gives a fucking shit. Everybody is happy and everybody wants to have fun, but. I think we leave, and to get back to your question, I think we move back, and we get rid of our comfort zone, just taking or looking to what's going on in our little circus, to more like, okay, we need to stand up and raise our voices and fight for each of us. Doesn't matter if it is our personal benefit right away or not, or if it does really affect us in the most straight way that we make a business out of it, because otherwise, I mean, look how many millions or billions are given to either the car industry or the airline industry or the tourist industry, and how they're supporting those industries, and then look how much money culture is getting from all governments, I guess, in the world. I don't think it's a big difference. Besides in Canada, I know that they have a great funding system in Canada, but besides of this, I mean, we were always alone, and need to hope to our fans that they support us, and so that we can survive.
No, I think that's a good point. There's solidarity in so many different ways, and I think it's also important for us to understand that we need to have solidarity within this, you know, let's call it an industry, but I think it's just a collective of different activities. I think that's the one thing from COVID, is that we all in a way got flattened. It's kind of what you were saying, Kalben. You know, when you have the tax debt, you're free to do anything, you know. So here we are, you know, we're all in a way needing to reflect and kind of reboot and find version 5.0. You know, the other versions are not working, and I think it's really exciting time. It's really empowering, actually. It's scary, you know, change is scary, but I think it's also really potentially exciting. We've gone quite a bit over, so I would just say I think that the idea, it came out very, very strongly in what all of you said, and I really appreciate it. Is music the weapon of the future? Well, it's probably the weapon of the present and the future, and it's something that can be empowering. It can build bridges. It can do all of these wonderful things we talked about, and I really thank you all. It was really super enjoyable and nice to virtually meet you. I hope I get to meet you in person at some point.
Excuse me, Chris. I have a question.
Yeah, we have time for one question.
Okay.
Thank you. Who is asking?
Who's asking?
Do you know Yochai?
Hi.
Do you know a body like a company who take independent musicians who act with a protest in countries in like global music for peace and for women's and for gays and something like that?
You mean like what kind of company? Like a record company, music company?
Music company. I don't know about the record because it's not like unprofit. but
I run a record company.
no, but something.
I can speak to that on a personal level. But yes, look, I think we all sort of made that clear, and I think Andrew very specifically, and I can certainly say from our experience, with my company, we're releasing music that has rather, let's say, vivid political opinions. We don't shy away from this at all, and we're looking for artists that have strong stories of empowerment and that are building bridges just by the very act of what they're doing. Just the fact that they're making music is a bridge in itself, and I think we got that impression also. But it's very, very clear from Kobi and Kalben also that that's what they're doing musically.
Yes, Kobi, thank you.
What did you want to say?
I wanted to say hi, Yochai. How are you?
Great, thank you. How are you?
One of the sentences that inspired me the most by the Chilean singer who got murdered in Chile, Victor Jara. In one of his songs, he says in Spanish, I will translate, he says, Canto que ha sido valiente siempre será canción nueva, which means a song that has courage in it, it will forever be a new song.
Bravo.
And when you could have seen the protest in Chile, like, I don't know, a few months ago, you could have seen dozens of people standing with guitars and singing Victor Jara's songs. He wrote them like, I don't know, 30, 40 years ago, and here they are standing, protesting and singing his songs, which means that he was right. Those songs are forever new songs. And I don't know if there is a record company, to your question, that do that. I think that Chris would know better, and he obviously works and do that. But I know that protest songs they are not dying. They live forever. And this is a great news for protest movements. It's a great news for record companies as well, I think. It's great news for everyone because this is the power of protest music.
It definitely is, and you're totally right, Kobi. Obviously, if you either have in your catalog protest songs, old protest songs, or also new protest songs, it's always a big benefit. And I'm not aware of any record company who wouldn't sign artists only because they are maybe too political. Besides, if you probably are super right wing, but if you are like in our sphere and business, everybody is happy if you have an artist or a band who can express a point and who has a message to say. Because it's from the PR point of view, and even from the totally point of an industry, you like for me, like a PR person, I always love bands who has something to say because it gives me the opportunity to run a better PR campaign. Nothing is more boring if you try to squeeze out of an artist some interesting sentence, because, and it's, I mean, it's not their fault if they just don't have anything to say. It's okay, what can I do? But obviously it's always more fun to work an artist who has a point, who has a strong message, because basically you can then also work much better and pin down some good reviews and some good feedback from journalists.
That's absolutely true. I mean, narratives are really, really important in marketing, and you know, those narratives, if they're authentic and really strongly driven from inside the soul of the artist, that's very apparent. You know, that cuts through a lot of lines. It cuts through a lot of background noise and a lot of hum, and it's actually, you know, in the realm of things, it's actually good business too.
And there's also so much freedom.
Yeah.
We should also remember that there is so much freedom in this new era where the artist is actually free. We always forget it as artists. We always want some people to like say, you're going to do this like this, and then everything is going to be all right. But the artist is so free. You can fail 1,000 times, but still tell your ideas and still tell how you feel about the world and the orders of the world. And you can use these new tools of this era for just speaking up. You know, there's also that opportunity now, which is like amazing opportunity. You can just be yourself, and you can find 10,000 people all around the world, 10,000 friends
to connect.
One song,
to connect
with.
Yeah.
You can just release a song on your own, and you can just find friends all around the world. That's amazing.
Absolutely. Yeah, and music and the music business do not move forward by only playing the rules. They move forward by breaking the rules. You know, that's the ultimate thing, and that is the empowerment of the artists and the people that are involved. So keep breaking the rules.
Definitely.
All right.
All right. Wow. Guys, I think, wow, this was, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
I think this was like the most inspirational talk that I had like recently, and of course to finish this this festival. And you know, tomorrow it's Saturday night, which is for I think almost, Kobi, how much? 4 months already? Like 3 months. Every Saturday night there is the big protest in Balfour. And it's so symbolic to finish this this festival, in this conference, in this kind of talk. And I want to do a closure to these 4 days. And I really hope, you know, that this period will be over, and wait, and you know, all the right protests will win, you know. And we can keep on doing our happy and poppy music, right aside our protest and deep music. And I want to finish this festival and tell you, all of you, thank you very much for taking part and share, and mostly for the whole 4 hours. Really opened my mind and eyes, and it was really make me very happy to be here. And I want to thank you guys, Chris, Kalben, Andrew, Kobi, and all the rest, all you 45 people who really survived until now. Super nice. And I want to thank Itamar here. You can see him, yeah. And the Meat Fishbein. They were the masters of the Zoom and the conference, and all 3 nights that we've been together, you know, and see the shows together, and had some fun on the chats and drinks. I want to thank you so much, and I really hope to see you all next year here in Israel with us. It's if this was fun, when you're gonna be here, it will be super total fun. And thank you very much, and see you next year.
Thank you.
Dun, 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 dun.
Thank you all. Wow.